So I've just pulled up a slide now where you should see a kind of fuzzy, funny picture of me. My name is Jen, and I'm part of a project where we're trying to offer these kind of online workshops for folks, especially because UBC has so many commuter students, and it's really tough to take advantage of these when we're on campus. So that's the project that I'm a part of with UBC Library and these other project partners you'll see under my name. But I'm also a student as well. I'm at the School of Library, Archival, and Information Studies. So I don't have a lot of exams right now, but I have had in the past, and I was a UBC student for my undergrad as well. So I just wanted to get a little bit of information from you and where you're coming from. So I'm going to put up a slide, a poll slide, where you can type in what year you're in and what you're studying, and then I'll be able to publish it so we can see it as a group. It should be coming up now. You should see a blue slide that says please enter your year, and you can type right into that white box and click submit. So Andre, do you just want to let me know whether you're doing this as well or not? I just am not sure if I'm waiting for one more response or if we're ready to roll. Oh, there we go. I've got 6 of you now. So I'm just going to publish it and we can see who's in our group today. Great. So a wide variety. We've got third-year biology, second-year human geography, arts, poli-sci, forestry, and science. So a really wide range. That's great. I hope that we can bring a variety of perspectives from your different experiences and that we can learn from each other. And the next slide is just a bit of a workshop overview of what we want you to walk away with today and the purpose of this workshop. And the first part of it is just to help control that exam anxiety, which can be pretty high at this point, and we get pretty stressed out. Thanks, Andre, for letting me know. That's great. And also some strategies for preparing effectively for those exams. And then, of course, those tips for each kind of exam question out there and how to perform well. The other thing that Andre's just put up is a link to a handout that hopefully most of you got ahead of time in the email, but it is a PDF that I'd like to refer to in the workshop. So if you didn't get a chance to print or download that, can you click on the link in the chat box now and make sure that you get it? Because I would like to refer to it occasionally. And once you have the handout, can you just make sure there's one of those green check marks next to your name so that I know everybody has a copy of it? It can just be minimized for now on your computer, but I just want to know that we all have access. So 3 of us. Oh, and Andre's given another link as well, if that's easier. Lee says she's having a hard time finding it. Are you able to click on one of those links, Lee, and get access? Maybe the second one's easier. No. Can you share with us what's happening, why it's not coming up for you, or is it not that you? Oh, thanks, Andre. Maybe we'd be able to email it to you directly as an attachment if need be. The link in the email works. Great. Does that mean you have a copy now? I'm noticing, Marissa, you don't have a check as well. Were you able to access it at all? Oh, okay, great. Just didn't have the check. No problem. So everyone's on board. Perfect. So the first section, as I said, is to do with exam anxiety. And I just want you to take a moment to reflect on how you're feeling now. The next one is another poll, just for you to think about maybe your toughest exam, the one you're most concerned with, and how would you rate your anxiety level on a scale of 1 to 8? And then click submit, of course. So I've got 2 responses. I've just got 3 more people who need to respond. So you should be able to click on any of those little buttons beside the number and then click submit. So we've got 2 more folks. Just approximately how you're feeling about that exam. You can click right on the blue screen. Or let us know in the chat box if for some reason you're not able to click on the poll. Oh, just need 1 more. Oh, I guess we lost one. Okay. Thanks, Andre. Well, I'll publish what we do have. Okay, interesting. We've got some folks that are really high up there on the anxiety level and some that aren't really worried at all. And in the workshop we did in the past, we had a lot of people around the 5 or 6 range. And I think it's interesting and hopefully comforting for you to know that there's a lot of people that are feeling the same way that you are. So it's not necessarily a bad thing to feel that way. Exams are a huge portion of your grade, and it's a big step from high school, especially if this is your first year, as it is for some of you. I'm bringing up a slide called Bloom's taxonomy, which you may have heard of before. But it's really common to feel overwhelmed, partly because the amount of content compared to what we're used to in the past is much, much greater. And in high school, you usually can get away with memorizing a lot of things and kind of regurgitating it on the test. And in university, you still need those skills. You need to memorize a lot of information, but we're asked to take it a lot further and to think critically about that material and build connections to evaluate it, interpret it, maybe apply it in a new context. And that's true regardless of our subject area. So it's important to understand that and to think about that as you prepare with your studies, but also recognize that that's part of the reason we can feel really anxious. So what can you do to control that anxiety? Recognizing it is your first step, and knowing that there's other people out there feeling the same way can be comforting. The first step of your handout, if you want to pull that up in front of you, lists all kinds of tips for avoiding anxiety. And obviously early preparation helps, and rest and some regular routines. Some of the interesting ones on there for me are that you should continue with how you regularly do things. So if you're someone who just needs that power walk, or you go to the gym on a regular basis, it's really easy to hit exam time and decide, no, I don't have time for that. I've got to drop all those things. And sometimes that can make our anxiety level worse and make our productivity worse. So it's important to schedule in those times and continue doing it. And you may find if you did go out for that power walk, your study session is just that much more productive afterwards. So I'd really encourage you to stick with your regular routine. I like the one about caffeine too, where some sources out there say, no, avoid caffeine, you get too jittery. But for those of us who like that coffee every day in the morning, this is suggesting, no, keep that. It's consistent. It's part of your routine. Not having those things can put you into a more stressful situation than what you really want. And the other thing I think that's good to recognize, and this is from a study by Yerkes and Dodson, is that some anxiety is actually really good and helps you perform well on your exams. Sometimes when we don't care at all or we're not worried at all, it's a sign that we're feeling maybe so overwhelmed that we get to a place where we're apathetic and we don't care. And you can see on this graph, the peak of it is actually a little ways along on the axis for stress or anxiety. So we're motivated, we're maybe a little bit nervous, we're stressed, but that doesn't mean that we can't still perform really well. So the next slide I want to give you is what we call the in-class oxygenator. And this one's a little funny, maybe a little hokey for some of us, but it's the beauty of online learning that no one else can see you right now. So I'm going to ask you to just play along with me and get on board. Um, a lot of us spend hours and hours hunched over a computer screen, and it's important sometimes to take that break, straighten up, and flex those muscles and take those deep breaths to get us going again. So I'm going to ask you to try it with me now. I want you to sit up tall, and I want you to try and tense every muscle in your body as hard as you can and hold it for about 5 seconds. And then for those yogis out there with us, I want you to take 3 very deep, very slow breaths. So 1 deep inhale and let it all out. And 1 more huge inhale and release. And 1 last time. Long inhale and let it all out again. And then I'd like you to tense those muscles again as hard as you can for 5 seconds. And relax. So, as hokey as this may sound, some of the yogis out there with me might understand some of those huge benefits of taking those deep breaths and working those muscles, even in as small a way as sitting in your chair and doing this now. It's something you can do on the bus. It's something you can do in your lecture or right in the middle of an exam when you're starting to feel a little bit worried. You've looked at 3 questions and you're not sure you know the answer to any of them. I'd really encourage you to just take a minute, refocus, rejuvenate all those muscles, and it'll affect your brain as well. So that's just one strategy. But I'd also like to hear from you because sometimes we all have strategies that are really useful to us and that it might be important to share with others. So once again, I'd love it if we could just type in one of our favorite strategies of what we do, maybe for exam anxiety or even just when we get really stressed out. What's something that you like to do to help you get refocused? And when you're done, just click submit and share it with the group. And don't worry, it doesn't have to be earth-shattering. Any idea is useful, and we'd love to hear your thoughts. So some of us have put it in the chat box. If you wouldn't mind typing right into the white box right on top of that blue screen, it will actually allow you to do that, and then click the submit button. So I've noticed Michelle and Lee, are you able to type it right into that white box on the blue slide? And then click that submit button. So I've got 3 people that are ready. If a couple more of you want to take a minute and share your strategies with us, that would be great. I know one person in the last group mentioned coloring, which I thought was really cool. I'd never heard that one before, but coloring was something that helped them to relax. And honestly, I could really see that. So I'm publishing what everyone has said. And if we want to take a minute just to see what our peers have as some of their strategies. Great. There's a lot of great ideas here. And I'm noticing a theme for many of them is just that release time to get away for a minute, refocus, relax, and then come back. And it can be like a jog or a run and something quite vigorous or something as simple as just closing our eyes and releasing for a minute and then coming back to it. So thanks for sharing that. So obviously, the most important part for feeling ready for exams is the preparation part. And maybe at this stage of the game, this isn't the slide you want to be seeing where it says to attend all your classes and take great notes, because some of us might not have done that. But the reason I'm bringing it up is actually that I wanted to share a resource with you, because the Learning Commons site, where you may have found out about this workshop and which will be offering more things like this in the next term, including some note-taking ones and time management ones. There's a link there to their site where there's all kinds of toolkits. And I'm going to just bring up a screenshot of the actual website, but I'll also fire the link for the Learning Commons into the chat box for you, so you can have a look at it and bookmark it for later if you want to. Oh, thanks, Andre. There we go. So this is what the Learning Commons site looks like, and I've brought it up on the Study Toolkit page. And there's all kinds of options here, everything from procrastination to time management. It's a little tough to see, but the other one I've put here in the drop-down menu is places to get study help, because there's also tutors and other study resources that might be really helpful. So I just want you to know that it's there. So feel free to bookmark that one. And then in terms of getting prepped for that exam right now, the first step, which we might not always think of as a step, but actually is important, is just to take inventory of your material. By now, with exams right around the corner, you should have everything you need to study, all the syllabus, the lecture notes, slides, handouts, anything that your prof has emphasized or given to you as reading material you should have with you. And I think a pile on the corner of the desk, that's great. That's all you need as long as you know it's all there. I know I'm really guilty of this, that it's a classic procrastination move to just try and organize it all and label it, and I can waste a lot of time doing that. Really all I need to know is that that pile of information is there and ready when I'm able to go and tackle it. So I'd like you to think of that exam that you're most concerned about right now and tell me if you think you have every piece of material you need to study for it in one place right now gathered. So just type a check or an X next to your name. Check obviously for yes and X for no if you have all of that ready to roll. So great. Most of us are responding yes, and that's a really good thing. And you should feel reassured knowing that you have everything you need to be successful in front of you. And the big question is why? Why would that be important to even think about that and to have it all there? And it's not really just about the gathering piece. It's about knowing how much there is to study and breaking it into manageable chunks, deciding which pieces need to be emphasized, and also maybe where there's concepts that you're really needing to get help. There's times where we look through it and realize, oh, there's a section that I never really quite understood, and I might need to make a last-minute appointment with a TA or a prof just to get those things clarified. So that's why it's really important early in the game to make sure you've gathered all those materials so you can have a look, even a cursory look at it, and get yourself prepared. And then the last one that you see on there is also anticipating that exam itself. So do you know what your exam is going to look like? And this is where I'd like to refer to your handout. I'm sorry, not quite yet. I'm ahead of myself here. I have a question for your upcoming exam, and whether you can answer yes to all of the questions. Oh, that's the wrong one too. If you can answer yes to all of these questions, now you should see a slide that says, do you know if your exam? So if you can answer yes, just check all of the ones that apply. Do you know if it's based mostly just on the lectures, or is there a lot on the readings? Are there choices? Do you know what types of exam questions are being asked? Essay, short answer, that kind of thing. So if, again, you'd take a minute to just check all that apply and then click submit. So we're just waiting on one more, and then I'll publish them to see where we're at. Great. So mostly it's a good thing. Most of us know the answers to all of these questions, but it's not 100%. And if you don't know the answers to these questions, wouldn't you want to? And one thing I want to emphasize here is that although it's not appropriate to ask your professor exactly what's on your exam, all of these questions are perfectly appropriate to ask. It's okay to ask, are there choices? It's okay to ask if it's emphasized more on lectures or on readings as well, and the types of questions that will be on there. So some of us sometimes feel uncomfortable asking those kinds of things, and I'd really encourage you to go for it and take ownership, because it can make a big difference in the way that you prepare for your exam. So if you haven't done that, consider doing it and making that appointment to find out some things, or consider at least doing it in the future. The other one I wanted to ask you is just thinking about that toughest exam. Maybe share with the group what exam that is or what course that is, just to see where we're coming from, because we do have a number of people from many different faculty. And yes, thank you, Victor. You're also pointing out that if you feel really uncomfortable making an in-person appointment, you can always email as well. And many profs are happy to communicate that way as well. It never hurts to ask. So I've just got one more person to respond, and then we'll see what people say about their most challenging task ahead. Oh, there we go. Great. So a big variety again, obviously, given your backgrounds. And I would assume that the kinds of exams that you're going to have are also going to be significantly different. So that will come up later too when we're focusing on types of exam questions. But it's good to realize that these assignments can look really different, and it is perfectly appropriate to find out a little bit more about them so that you feel like you can prepare appropriately. And now is when I wanted you to look at that handout. If you pull up that PDF, on one of the pages at the back, I believe it's page 8, there's a little to-do list. And I just wanted you to have a quick look at it for a moment, because you'll notice that first one is to gather those materials, make sure you've taken that inventory. But the next piece lists a number of other places where you can get good information about practice exams. That's a really great strategy as well, and many of you might know that already. I know the math department, for example, lists a lot of their past exams. There are physics ones that you can access, and the chem and biology ones, I believe the science club often sells for about $10. So if that's not something, oh, thanks, Andre, to-do list is on page 9. So if that's not something you're aware of, I'd really recommend finding that out. I know in my undergrad it was really great to have those practice exams and just have an idea of the types of things that would be asked and to gear my studying toward it. The other one on there is, it says Prep 101, and I need to let you know that that's not directly affiliated with the university, so you really have to watch for instructor names and dates to make sure that these are actually a reflection of current UBC courses. But that's another really popular site where you can actually pay for tutoring courses as well if you want to, but on the site they also offer free practice exams for quite a variety of courses. So I just wanted to highlight those. And again here, you'll notice I've highlighted this idea of an appointment with a TA or a prof. I know for myself, and in our last course too, people confirmed that maybe one of their biggest regrets was not taking the opportunity to go and visit your prof or TA and clarify those trouble spots, or even to come up with one or two specific questions you might find leads to a discussion that actually gives you a lot more information that's really important. And you'll find out priority areas or things that your prof emphasizes. And then the other side of it is it might make you feel more invested in your course to have built that relationship and take that initiative. So I'd really encourage it. And then once again, that Learning Commons site has a lot of great resources. So we talked about Bloom's taxonomy. We talked about studying becoming more than memorization, but we have all these different types of exam questions now that take it to a whole new level. So I'm going to direct you away from that handout and back to the slides again, just to look at these types of exam questions, the multiple choice, true and false, short answer, essay. So depending on your faculty and that exam that you just shared with us that you're most concerned about, think about what you might assume is the kind of questions that you're going to be asked in the exam, or maybe the ones that you find the most challenging to tackle. And that's where this student handout that I gave you again has a number of tips of ways to approach those questions that might help you, especially at times when you get really stuck. So you don't need to go through the whole thing right now. I'd like you to just pick one, maybe the one that you struggle with the most. And I'm going to just ask you to take the next 5 minutes to read through those tips for that type of question. If multiple choice is your real problem area, just read the multiple choice things. And I'd like you to keep in mind one tip that you think is the best one to keep in mind that might help you on your exam, and be prepared to share it with the group later. So go ahead now and just look at that handout for a couple minutes. Choose that exam question you're most worried about and see if you can come up with a tip that you think is really valuable. I'll put up that your turn slide and just give you the next 5 minutes to look it over. The information is on pages 2 to 6. So maybe if you're almost ready, or if you are ready, could you maybe just click on the smiley face for me to let me know that you're ready to share some of the strategies that you learned about from the handout. And if you're not, don't feel rushed. I'm just trying to get a feel for where folks are at. So 2 of us are ready. So 4, 5. So we'll just wait for one more to be ready, and then we'll keep going. Great. I think Andre was ready too. So if multiple choice was your big stickler, would you just enter the best tip that you found for tackling a multiple choice question and share it with the group, just so we can all benefit from what you learned? So just give another minute in case there's anyone else who had multiple choice. And then we'll publish what's there. Okay. So I'll publish the one that we do have. So look for answers in other test questions. Yeah, of course. Sometimes we forget to do that, and we don't realize that the answer to the question we're struggling with might actually be answered in one of the other questions, and that's so true. So it's a good idea sometimes to even consider reading through your exam first, because that's really common. I've definitely come across that. I also like the one about where there's 2 answers that are really similar, or else they have completely opposite meanings. Often one of those 2 is the correct one. So to kind of go with your instinct, try to answer the question before you even look at the answers. And then if you see one that seems to be what you were thinking, probably you're right. So I liked those ones. If you chose true and false as the one you really struggle with, maybe just give me a little happy face so I know how many people are working on it, just in case I miss somebody. And then enter your strategy to share with the group and click submit. So again, if you wouldn't mind just giving me a smiley face. Oh, one person chose it. And then if you'd give us your strategy to share, that would be great. Once you click submit, then I'll share it with the group. Great. Tentative words are often true. Yeah, that's one that we don't really think about, but that's a good clue because it does leave room for those exceptions. So things like seldom or sometimes or often. So that wasn't one that I knew about either. And yeah, the other one that I hadn't really heard before is that most are generally true. I don't know if that's a risk we want to take or not, but I guess on those times when we just really don't know and we have to take a guess, it's interesting to know that statistically more are true than false. So how about for short answer? Do you want to give me a smiley face if that's the one you decided to pay attention to? And then we'll publish your tip for the group. Yeah, it doesn't look like anyone really picked that. And I think in some ways it's a tougher one. There aren't a lot of tips. It's like you know the answer or you don't. Maybe those grammatical hints, like if it's A-N, then the answer might start with a vowel, that kind of thing. But mostly those are times when keep it short and sweet and maybe pay attention to the way the marks are broken down and make sure you're answering the ones that are worth the most. So that leaves the essay questions, which is what maybe the majority of us chose. So if you decided to pick essay questions as your tough one to really tackle, maybe share your tip with us now and click submit. I think that leaves 4 of us. So I'll just give a second for a couple more people to respond. I think we're just waiting for one more. So I don't know, maybe I missed someone, or maybe there was someone that wanted to contribute to another question and didn't get a chance. So I apologize if I cut you off. Feel free to type anything into the chat box, of course, at any time. If there's other things that you wanted to comment on or share, I'm just going to publish what people did say for essays. So running out of time, point form, answer the easiest one first, and time management. Those are all excellent points. The time management one for sure, because you want to make sure those ones that are worth the most points are ones that you've tackled. And the easiest question first one I think is really interesting. Given we just talked about exam anxiety, some people find it a lot more calming to answer those easy ones, build your confidence on the exam, and then tackle the hard ones. Other people feel like if they're pressed for time, they want to make sure they answer the ones that are worth the most first and get those out of the way and make sure that they don't run out of time. And then when you're running out of time, make sure you put something down, even if it's in point form, because for many courses, they'll at least give you part marks. So that's really good advice. And you'll probably notice in the handout following that there were also a description of all kinds of words for the type of question you might be asked: compare, discuss, contrast, prove, that sort of thing. And then it gives you a bit of a definition of what's really being asked when that is part of your question. And I think it's good to have a look at those. Think about your content and your coursework and what you might be asked based on things that your prof emphasized, and think about preparing a few outlines to questions. Maybe it's too much to actually write out the essays ahead of time, but even writing out those point form outlines can really help you organize your thoughts so that when you get into the exam, you're ready to just put it all down and you're not struggling to organize it or put it together in a way that makes sense. So thank you for sharing those. That's excellent. I hope that this handout will be a bit of a resource for you to look at some of the other suggestions in there as well. So making your study plan. Once you've gathered all those materials, you found out what kind of exam you might be faced with, then you've got to get to work on it. And one of the first things to think about sometimes that we can easily forget is thinking about how you study best. On your handout, there's a few questions that talk about where you study. Oh, I don't know why that slide's not coming up. I'm going to try that again. Well, the slide isn't coming up, but all it really says is how do you study best? And I like that idea even more than where do you study, because there's sort of conditions that set us up for success. Much like an athlete who's trying to get focused before a great performance. They might have a warm-up routine they like. They might have a meal that they want to eat every time. They might have music that they listen to. For some of us, that can be the case for preparing for a big exam as well. We might need to be at home in a quiet space, listening to music, and for others of us, that's really distracting. So I want you to give some thought to that and consider the places that you find it easiest to study. The example on there lists, I think, Woodward Library because it's cold and it keeps them awake because otherwise they fall asleep, which I thought is really interesting. And then the other piece is thinking about things that distract you and take your focus away. So for some people, being at the library is a problem because they run into friends and they end up visiting and they don't get down to work, and it's not really a study partner. For others of us, we really need that study partner because we want to practice rehearsing the questions back and forth and really having to articulate our ideas. So it's important to take a little bit of time to really think about how you study best. What are the strategies that work for you? And actually, maybe before we get too far, I know I've pulled up a slide now that says, what are your priorities? Maybe you just want to chat for a minute and share with us, where are the places that you study best? Are you someone who needs a completely quiet space holed up in your room, or are you someone who needs to bounce ideas off and study and quiz yourself with friends? Maybe just type something into the chat box if you have, or if you're willing to share with us. Tea and headphones. Yeah, and that's another thing, actually. For some of us in the library, it can be so busy that once we get there, we don't want to leave and lose our spot. So it helps to be really prepared, to plan to take that thermos of tea with you, or plan to have those snacks with you, so that when you get hungry, you don't feel like you're going to leave and lose your spot and then get distracted along the way. Yeah, not someplace cold. Yeah, that wouldn't be me either. I thought that was a funny example in the handout, but it's interesting how everyone has their thing. So in the last part, Victor likes to meet up with someone and go over it. And I feel like that as well. Once I've mastered the content, then I really want a chance to quiz myself and have people ask me things, and make sure that I know it enough that I can explain it to someone else. Yeah, a little bit of white noise. Some of us are good with that. I agree. Yeah, and friends helping at the final stages. So just to remind ourselves of that and think of, what are the things when we've been really successful, maybe on a project or a past exam, what were the things that worked for you? And are you setting yourself up to have that happen again this time? And maybe having a bit of an exam study routine that you like and that you can be successful with. So here's just a few more things. And these seem kind of obvious. Summarizing and then condensing your notes. If you are a commuter like I am, that's really useful, because I know I don't want to cart my textbook around everywhere I go, and I'm not going to do it. But if I have a few cheat sheets to look at that I can quiz myself while I'm sitting on the bus or waiting for a bus, even those 10 minutes of studying are better than no minutes of studying. So planning to have those materials ready and then have them with me is always a good idea. And the reason that this slide is titled Get Started in 5 Minutes is there's another thing that folks call the wedging technique, which is kind of an interesting one for me. Basically what it means is, for many people, if you commit to just sitting down and getting going for 5 minutes, if you finally quit all that procrastinating and get working for 5 minutes, chances are after that 5 minutes, you'll stay there and work for a lot longer and spend that solid couple of hours that you need to. So if that's an easier way for you to think about it mentally, just commit to that 5 minutes, get going for 5, and by then you might get into a rhythm and really accomplish something. So that's another technique maybe to try. Give yourself 5 minutes to get going. But I think also you need all those other conditions that set you up for success, some of which you're mentioning here. Taking naps. Yes. Study tasks to break it down. And there again, having all that content in front of you really helps, so that you don't end up spending hours and hours on, that first couple of weeks of the course material and then run out of time and end up cramming the whole rest of the course. So to budget your time accordingly by taking inventory and seeing really what you have in front of you and breaking it down. So as we wrap up, something that I'd like you to do is to really think about your personal plan. What are the things that set you up for success, and what do you want your outcome to be? I'm going to go back to this other one that we didn't really talk through about prioritizing, because that's another piece on your handout where there's a table. This one's sort of a condensed version on the slide in front of us, and it lists an exam, which I want you to notice is not the actual date, it's just an example, and the type of exam. So this student has found out the kind of exam that they're going to be faced with. They've got their current grade listed and what they want their grade to be. And I've broken it down to even more columns on your handout so that you can calculate, well, what does that mean you need on your final exam in order to achieve that final grade? And for this person, they would need an 80% in order to get the mark they want in the class, which is going to be a pretty big task given their current grade. And then they've listed these study details of how they're going to do it. And they do acknowledge this is a high priority one. This is maybe that exam that they are most worried about, and that they need to make sure all those notes are condensed within the next 3 days if they're going to have enough time to review and do practice questions and really master their content. So if that's a useful way for you to break it down, I know some of us may even have 5 or 6 exams. So if that chart is something that's useful for you to fill out, just so you get a real sense of how many hours of work are ahead of you and how are you going to break that down in the next weeks ahead, then by all means, we want to offer you that resource. If that's just one more procrastination thing for you, then don't fill it out. But it's just another tool to offer. So yeah, I'd like you to think, what is your outcome? For some of us, it might be that 75%. It might be higher. For some of us, we just might want to pass the course. So be realistic with yourself and ask yourself what it is you really want, and then what are the steps you need to take to achieve that outcome. So we've offered you some strategies of what can happen. This is a little slide that shows that to-do list on the page 9 of your handout. And again, if this is useful for you as a way to break down what needs to happen and a way to check that list, that's great. If this isn't useful, don't use it. But I've tried to summarize again some of the steps that you need to take in order to get yourself prepared. So now I want you to think about what it means for you personally. And if there's something in this workshop, even just one piece of information or a new thing or a strategy you learned either from the material offered or maybe from one of the other people in the group, can you just respond with a yes or a no if you got something out of it that will help you achieve the outcome that you want? So I've got 3 responses. We're just waiting for a couple more, and then we'll share what people feel. And be honest, don't worry, I'm not offended. We just really want to know if this information is useful to you in meeting your goals. Oh, thanks, Victor, for letting me know. Good luck with your exams, and thanks for coming today. So we'll just wait for one more response. And then I'd like to wrap up with a couple things still. Okay, so all of us at least got something here that was useful. So that's great. I'm really glad. I wish you all the best. I would actually like you to take one more minute to really articulate what it is specifically that you thought about today, that you learned from the workshop or from each other. List 3 specific things that you feel are going to help you with your upcoming exams, either to beat that anxiety or to get you better prepared, or to tackle a particular type of exam or exam question. So if you number them, that'd be great, but try to pick the 3 that you feel are really going to help you. Oh, looks like we've lost Carolina too. So I've got one person. We just have 3 more. And while you're waiting, feel free to include any other comments or questions or things that you'd like to ask each other, or other information that we didn't offer that you'd really like to know. Please chat away in the text. I'd really encourage you to share or to ask anything. We just have 2 more people to respond, and then I'll put up what folks had to say. And one more, and again, feel free to type in any questions or other information that you'd really like to share or to know about. Okay, so I'm just putting it up. The to-do list is helpful for some of us. That's great. I'm glad. I know I'm a list person myself. I'm even guilty of adding things to my list just so I can check them off. Multiple choice, wedging, and emailing the prof. Yeah, thank you for sharing that, Victor. I guess he's gone now, but it's a good reminder that it's all right even to email just to get that little bit of information. Think of one or two specific questions, and you might end up with a lot of really useful information. So it's really worthwhile taking that step. True and false. The cold study room. 5 minutes and the breathing techniques. Yeah, thank you very much. Those are great ways to reflect on what works for you and to really revisit it and think about the things that can help you be successful. There's one more thing that I'd love for you to do. I'm just putting a link in. Oh, I'm trying to put a link in, but it's not working. I'm going to maybe send it to Andre instead to share with you. We're trying to offer more and more things in this format online because we know that so many folks out there do commute, and it's really tough to get to things on campus. I'm just sending it to you now, Andre. But it's a link to a little bit of a feedback on this style of a workshop, and this type of environment is called Wimba Classroom, just for you to let us know what things you like about it, what things you don't like about it, and it really will only take 2 or 3 minutes. So he's just going to put a link up in the chat section for me in a second. I had to send it to him by email because I've got my own technical issues. But in the meantime, are there any questions that people have or things that we didn't cover that you'd like to know about? Can you feel free to type those into the chat area as well? Thanks for letting me know, Andre. Sorry, I didn't think of that ahead of time. No questions from people? Or are there other practice exams that you know about or places to access those? I know math and physics and some of the science ones are really accessible. But for the art students that are out there, do you find that there's those kind of opportunities or that your profs give you practice exams to look at? Not from previous years. Yeah, so that's maybe a case where it would be really worthwhile emailing profs and that kind of thing. Sample questions, that's good, that it helps at least. Okay, sorry, I will try that again, Andre. I'm just sending it now, so hopefully it doesn't take too long to come through. So are there any other questions or things that you wish you could know about prior to an exam, or resources that you think should be offered for these kind of workshops? Oh, someone tried to say something. Just make sure you're holding the talk button the whole time while you're talking, and go ahead. Oh, and Andre's just put up the link now. So if you click on that link and wouldn't mind filling out that survey for us, it really is quite quick, but it's really useful in helping us plan for this kind of learning in the future and what really works best for students. And other than that, if there's no other questions, then we'll wrap things up for tonight. Thanks so much for joining us and for participating. Oh, again, Lee's not able to access the links. Thanks, Marissa, and thanks for coming today. Best of luck on your exams. Lee, maybe I'll try sending you that link directly to your email. I'm not sure why you're having trouble accessing the links today. So I've just sent it to you now, Lee. Hopefully you'll get it. Yeah, you could try copying it. Will it let you highlight it and copy it, Lee? Oh, can't copy and paste either. I did send it to your email address through Gmail, so hopefully you'll get it there. And if you wouldn't mind taking a few minutes, we really do appreciate it. And thanks so much for coming today and for your input. Best of luck on your end of term. And thanks, Andre, again.
Hey, Jen.
Thanks, Andre, again.
No worries.
Oh.
Did you remember to record this time?
Oh. Yes, I did. So if I just press it again and it goes black, that means I'll stop the archive?
Yes, I think so. I think that means we'll create like.
Oh, perfect. Yeah.